Okay, are we ready to go? Yes. Good morning, everyone, to the penultimate, I think that's the word for second last day of DebConf. Congratulations for making it through the conference dinner and pitching up here this early in the morning. We have Deb Nicholson again for, I'm sure, an equally entertaining talk called Free Software / Utopia. We look forward to listening to you.
Great. Thanks so much. And yeah, I'm also glad that you all got up this morning. So this is me. I'm not going to go deep on that. I work at the Conservancy. I've been doing free software for a long time, and I've been thinking about what kind of world we're building with free software. So I'm sure not to really belabor this point here at DebConf, why free software matters. But why it matters to me is I used to do a lot of work, pro-democracy work, helping people get registered to vote, have access to the political process, and have access to good, timely information about their candidates and what they were supporting, what they weren't supporting. And so for me, the transparency and equal access stuff is sort of baked into building a society that I think we might want to live in. So, so as long as we're going to build a giant, huge thing that is effective at maybe disrupting, if we can reclaim that word, sort of some of the garbage that happens, why not build a utopia? If we're going to start all over from scratch, there's a lot of other stuff we could choose to not replicate. Of course, your utopia may vary. Not everyone has the same idea of what a utopia is, but maybe we have some similar ideas. For me, when I think about utopia, I think about justice and fairness, people all having control over their lives. It's starting to sound a little like free software, right? The rules apply equally to all people. It's not, oh, we wrote rules over here, but they only apply if you don't have money. Those are not equal, fair rules, right? So perhaps utopia would not be one thing for rich people and one thing for the rest of us. Another thing that I think about is that people feel empowered and fulfilled in a utopia. There's not a lot of folks that are like, oh, my job is to move the papers from here to here for 11 hours a day, and then the next day I move them back. And that's, to me, we don't have a lot of that happening in a utopia. Luckily, software has eliminated a lot of the actual physical paper moving from one place to the other. So that's another thing that I think about. Power is shared, and people are not, there's not one person in charge. You don't have a dictator in a utopia, one person who just sort of whimsically declares, say via Twitter, how things are going to be. And violence is avoided. So this is I actually I think maybe fish sort of live in a utopia, but I think that's just because they forget what happened yesterday, all the time, or 3 seconds ago. So when I think of fish don't remember anything terrible happening to them. So it's gonna be a little hard because we're actually good at remembering things, especially when people are mean to us. And it's not gonna be the same for all of us, the things that you don't wanna have in your history, but it'll be a little bit different for everyone. I read this book called Mizora, which is a really early feminist utopian. It's from 1880. And for her, she had a woman who went via a canoe and then discovered this sort of under a glacier wonderland of all women. And some of the key points were you didn't have to haggle for groceries, and you were allowed to take classes whenever you wanted. So so it could be there's really mild things where we might be oh, would we want to support a world where people are encouraged to learn all the time? Do we want to support a world where people don't have to constantly haggle for the smallest things? And then maybe we could build from there. So one of the things that we spend a lot of time doing in free software is building replacements for proprietary software. And I don't want to say merely building replacements, because some of those are really, 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 really hard. But I want us to maybe also kind of think if we're going to rebuild like software and technology and the way people interact with stuff, maybe we wouldn't just rearrange the chairs. Maybe we would like design totally different stuff that proprietary software doesn't do, because it's not perfect. Like, I definitely have people in the community from other spheres, not free software, that are like, oh yeah, proprietary software is just great, it just works. And then you see them grumping and they're like, damn it, I'm gonna have to buy a new damn iPhone. I'm like, oh, it's just working, huh? Like, shut up, that's not what I meant. I'm like, well, all right. Or like, I was helping someone, I was sitting on an airplane, which I do too much, and this couple next to me was trying to get their iPad to connect to the movies on the airplane. And it was supposed to be super easy. Like, the thing in the seat back pocket was 2 steps. Turn on your iPad, connect to movies. Yeah, that's not how it worked at all. We had to go into some part of the iPad they'd never seen, and were like a little afraid that I found for them, and then we connected it. So proprietary software is not this like beautiful, perfect unicorn where everything is going so great. So don't let them tell you that. And just because they've decided to build tools that do something in a certain way, and have decided that everyone needs to have, say, ads following them around on the internet, we don't have to replicate any of that, because it's junk. I don't know if you've ever like tried to purchase something like a toilet seat on the internet. So for like, if you don't turn off ads and scripts and everything, for the next 4 weeks, the internet treats you as if you are a toilet seat collector. We could do better, I think. Like, I mean, no shame for actual toilet seat collectors. You do you. So one thing that proprietary software does tend to do pretty well is they have like pretty swanky events. Not that this isn't swanky, it's very nice to be here in Curitiba, but, you know, I think, like, not pictured over here is the oyster bar and, you know, and the spa that came with the registration at the hotel. So we're not going to win on, like, outspending, I don't think, but we could win on all the other stuff. Like, we could be really awesome about mentoring new people. We could be really amazing about bringing folks in. You know, just, it might not involve, like, quite so many oysters. So some of the things that we might need to do to get there is think about, like, the outside of our community versus the inside of our community. And there's, like, a lot in there. So on the inside of our community, we're like, it's radically open, it's super nice here, it's very comfortable. We all feel comfortable because we're here, right? And it is fantastic, you know. And then on the outside, like, if you are not already here and haven't already come in, it might be a little frustrating at first. Or after a while, your mailing list may vary, but it can be really frustrating for new people to kind of chip in. So, like, while here, like at DebConf is really awesome, like maybe some of our peripheral places where people might come in could use a little work. So kind of just thinking about, like, if we want free software to empower all users, then we're probably going to need a few more people in here and excited about free software. So thinking about, like, who we're building it for. Like, I think most of us are pretty good at arranging, like, our own systems so that we like them and things like that. But thinking about who we're building it for that's not here, like, they're over there. What do they want? I see a lot of things that seem like they were maybe not built for everyone. And this happens a lot sometimes, like when folks are trying to build something with like a humanitarian aspect, and then they forget to ask the people that they're building it for what they would actually want. So my friend Paul like gives this story about, this is a non-software example of a play pump. So some people, not in Africa, decided that they would build this play pump for people who do live in Africa. And the idea is that it's this like toy, like kind of at a playground, like you push it and it's fun, and it makes water come up from the ground like a well, but without all of the, you know, typical traditional well hauling stuff. It turns out that the play pump was not fun because it was really hard to push. And then on top of that, then like adults had to do it, and they had to interact with a toy that was clearly made for children to do like their regular stuff all day. So it's a little bit demeaning and weird. And then even further, they didn't have any plan for maintenance and upkeep of this play pump. So they would break, and then no one would come to fix them, but the old pump was gone. So if any of that sounded like something you may have seen in software, now you can picture that. If we give people things and say, like, this is much better, oh, wait, it hasn't been updated from a security standpoint in a year and a half. Not so great. So thinking about who we're building it for, maybe even talking to them before we gift them with something they may or may not want, that's pretty important. So like I look at the people who designed this rocket ship, like, are clearly, have never met anyone claustrophobic and do not intend to travel in this thing. Like, the crew cabin is no windows and terrible. So if you are building something because you want people to do something as opposed to have an experience that you think they might want to have, that might be one way to think about it. Another thing I think about is, like, you know, again, like, here is great, but I know a lot of you and myself are involved in peripheral communities that could use a little, maybe, magic pixie dust of people being a little nicer and friendlier. I live in a part of the US called Massachusetts. Massachusetts is in a cold part of the US, and it has a reputation for people being kind of grumpy and unfriendly. It's probably true. But I didn't grow up there. I grew up in a place called Maryland, which there's a weird Wikipedia edit war as to whether or not Maryland is part of the US South. So there's this idea that Massachusetts is all grumpy and unfriendly, and then the South is full of nice people. That's not actually true, depending on who you are. The idea of Southern hospitality is sort of a myth. And when I first moved from Maryland to Massachusetts, like, I had to be told, like, oh, we don't just talk to each other on the subway and stuff. My friend was like, no. So then I got to, like, no, we're going to be cool, we're going to be Massachusetts. Like, I got around to this idea that, like rude was somehow more real and authentic. Yeah, I know. And so it turns out, and that, like, the Southern hospitality was fake. Like, all those people being nice, like, they're probably up to something. They probably wanted something. So I've come back around on that. Like, I've decided that, like, we could be both direct and also nice. That they're not, like, exclusive behavior modes. That we could tell people, like, yeah, actually that doesn't work, without calling them, like, a stupid something or other. So we can be direct and not fake, but also nice. So I started doing, when I was working downtown, I started asking tourists, because another thing that Boston, where I live, is famous for is having, like, really kind of a spaghetti of streets that's very hard to navigate for new people. So I would see people, like, kind of, what? Oh. And I'm like, oh, hey, what are you looking for? Can I help you? So probably you can see where this is going. I'd like us to do that in free software also. And, like, hey, it looks like you aren't familiar with the norms in IRC, and you've just kind of, hi, I'm here. Like, oh, let me help you. Usually people say what they're looking for when they show up. Or maybe the FAQ could be helpful for you first, and then you might have, like, a more specific question. So we could do that in free software too. And I think it would make it nice. So it might feel weird at first to just go up to strangers and be like, how's it going? Do you need some help? Are you looking for directions? So that's a thing that I think, like, if we're going to build a utopia, like, I think a utopia doesn't, like, say, welcome to Utopia, RTFM. So let's not do that. If we're gonna change the world, let's like fix all the pieces. User experience is another one where it's difficult. It's really difficult to look at your own stuff and imagine that you've never seen it before. So if you're designing a user experience, then you have to ask someone that is not involved in your work to take a look at it. Because just being like, well, all the pieces are there, not so great. I don't know if I'd sit on that. So it's... So I would love to see us focus a little more on like asking people we don't know. Maybe we have to buy them cookies or something, and that's okay. To say like, hey, is this something that you would use? Does this meet your needs? Like, can you figure out how to exit this program? Or will it just run on your computer forever until the power turns off? So that's one thing. I think also like accessibility, some projects do a great job of this. There are other places where we could use some work. It's not like an extra add-on. It's not like, oh, I finished the program and then next year I'm going to make it accessible. That's like kind of, that seems sad to me. Like we have code in space. Like we could certainly like figure out subtitles and how to make big letters if we can send code to space. That's just what I think. I also think like we could just decide to have no Nazis. I don't know how many of you participate in proprietary social networks, but it's full of Nazis. That's like maybe we would call it a market niche that we could fill, like the social network without Nazis. So, it could even be lucrative. People might even pay to talk to each other without Nazis involved. So, I love free software, but I'd like to see people make money too. So if you want to monetize, like, no Nazis, go for it. I'd love to see that. We can get rid of the poop and, so there we go. That's another thing that I think we could do better than proprietary software. So we're building this utopia. There are not going to be Nazis there. Sorry. Nazis. Not sorry. So who are we building this with? Like this utopia, like if we're building it with people, like not for them, like I gave you a gift. Here's a utopia. It's set up exactly like I like it. There's no windows and like we get to eat potato chips all day magically and don't get fat. It's great. But that might not be everyone's utopia. That might only be mine. So like if we want to build a utopia for everyone, then we're going to have more people in. So one of the projects that I worked on for a long time, and we may be doing a new iteration, I'll talk to you guys about that after if you want to, is Media Goblin. So my friend Chris and I wanted to build a decentralized media hosting program for people to run on their own machines. We wanted like artists and musicians and people who have blogs to all be able to like participate and have it there and to be able to organize the site that like their personal site around themselves and their stuff as opposed to around media type. This is like an example of one of those things where it's like, oh, it's weird that pictures are here, videos are here, songs are here, when it's all the same person. You could just have the stuff you do site, because there are people that take pictures and also like music, and people who like music that put it in films and all these different things. So why are they all separated? It's very weird. But so we thought about not only like, could we build something that didn't exist yet, but could we build it from the ground up with like, making it feel like everyone was actually really, really welcome. So we thought about it. Chris thought a lot about it. And so all of the artwork on the Media Goblin site, they look genderless. They're all like all these goblins. They're purple. They seem androgynous. So we didn't want to put like, oh, hey, like here's a picture of white dudes hanging out, but everyone's welcome. We were like, no, we're going to go all cartoon purple goblins. Everyone's welcome. And it's not like, wait, I thought everyone was welcome. Why are they not here? So we did that. We did a lot of stuff to think about like, how do we make everyone feel welcome? And it worked. They came in. I wasn't sure if we'd be able to do the video. You'll have to look it up later, but it's a video of someone playing the flute, and then the raccoons come all out of the woodwork. So we played the flute, and all of the people came and they were like, I want to contribute. So I think he's giving them food. Don't be afraid to give people food. That's a perfectly acceptable bribe for getting people to contribute to your project. But we worked really hard on diversity and inclusion at Media Goblin. And not just diversity like different color goblins, but like we thought really hard about like who we highlighted in the project. So all of our release notes like talked about our translators and our artists and people who wrote documentation and people who helped us on the website and people who blogged about the site. So we like put all those folks in the release notes. We talked constantly about how important both our coding and our non-coding contributors were. And lo and behold, we got a whole lot of non-coding contributors because one thing, like if you happen to be a non-coding contributor like myself, I mean, I can code. It's not the thing I'm very good at. You don't want to see my code. But if you tell non-coding contributors, like, come over here, we'll never acknowledge you or admit that we appreciate your work, they're not going to stick. They're not probably even going to come over, to be honest. So if you want lots of non-coders, then you're going to have to say, like, non-coders are welcome. And unfortunately, not every project does a good job of this. You may have to overcome, like, kind of a pervasive idea that coding projects don't want non-coders. And that isn't your fault. Even if you have a brand new project, it's like, well, I never said I didn't want non-coders. But there are, like, too many projects that are like, we're down here, like, having the fun times, and, like, we've left the non-coders out. So that's not your fault, but if you want to have non-coders, then you're going to have to proactively say, like, come over here, we'd love to have you. So, yeah. So the missing stairs are another one. I talked about this yesterday a little bit too, but it's another one of those things like, oh, we're building a beautiful utopia. Except if you talk to that person. Like, really? Oh, yeah, they're gonna like, they built something like a few years back and we just let them harass people. You know, it's like, huh, that's weird. That's like a weird kind of utopia. Like, that's like a science fiction utopia where it's like the price you have to pay is to put up with a missing stair. So if you're like, oh yeah, sit down, it's great in here, like, not as much. Another thing I think that is weird and kind of trips us up from building like an inclusive utopia is sort of this like obsession with the person who is working the most hours. There are a lot of people that use software that have other responsibilities in their lives and can't like crush code for 40 hours, or maybe they're crushing documentation. But it's, if you're like, yeah, like, this is the person the only person that you're like, this is amazing, like, our best contributor is the person who, like, never sleeps, never leaves their keyboard, hasn't seen the sun in, like, 3 years. Like, that's a little weird. It sends a message that that's what you want more of. And if you want software that gets used by people who don't do software 100% of the time, including sleep time, then you have to kind of make a little bit more room. And honestly, like, this person should go home and sleep and maybe take a walk in the park. It could be good for them too. I don't want to tell you how to live your life, but leaving the computer for a couple hours, it's good. It's good. What? That's blasphemy. So cool. Now we know who this is. Awesome. Cool. So another thing, like, if you want to build a diverse, inclusive, and welcoming project, you have to say so. You have to set your intention and put the things in place to do that. I know we have a code of conduct here. That's great. That is a great place to start on setting intentions. And I know that, again, that some of you participate in peripheral projects that maybe you could bring that magic over. But saying like, oh, we intend to treat people with respect, like human beings, is a great intention to set. There might be other ones. You might say like, hey, we're going to build something with people who need something specific that meets their needs, whatever they are. Like, maybe you're helping a friend who's got a domestic violence shelter, nonprofit, and you want to say, we want something that is like lock tight security-wise. So you might set that intention. You might decide, I think Colger mentioned something yesterday, that one of your intentions is that you want to make something that can continually be updated and not have to like throw out the hardware all the time, so that we're not putting so much junk in landfills. So whatever your intention is, you gotta set it and then think about it and how all of your other activities and decisions work into that. So that's like a little bit for people who are already here or who are thinking about being here. But what about the people who aren't here yet? You're like, why do we care about them? Well, if we want free software for everyone, like, we're gonna have to have a few more people. At least a lot more people, specifically conscientiously choosing to use free software. So maybe think of that as like kind of a lot of potential. Like we have more space here and we could bring more people in. But what's weird about so I mentioned that I worked in politics for a long time. One of the things that's really, really weird about politics is that you have like very opinionated people trying to get not so opinionated people to do things. So like, in fact, sometimes we would go to events where there would be people from our side and people from the other side talking about tactics and how you talk to the people in the middle who are doing something totally different that day that has nothing to do with politics and kind of don't care. Or they care a little bit, but they don't want to care full time. They don't want to care and spend the whole week or the whole weekend talking about it. So it can feel really weird. You're like, what do they want? Those people in the middle, like, but we have to find out. So for us in free software, that middle isn't like, oh, I work at a big company and we're pretty committed to our proprietary business model. That's not who we're gonna like bring in. It's very hard to drag people away from something that they're like, oh, but obviously I am a good person. Like, the world gave me 2 houses and a bunch of cars and a boat, so I must be a good person. I don't think that's correct, but the people in the middle who are like, my phone annoys me sometimes, or, yeah, I don't like being like followed around on the internet by toilet ads, or, how come like all my books disappeared again? So those are the people that are like not like free software, F yeah. Those are folks who are like, technology feels annoying and not like it's for me. So those are our middle, I think. Not people who are invested and excited to be the CTO of a giant proprietary software company, but folks who are like, I wish I could throw this thing out the window and have something else come back in that didn't ghost me with toilet ads. So like, that's our middle. So we could be bringing those folks in. And so I think, there's, again, like, proprietary software has set the bar very low. Like, we could really, really do like so much better. Like, I don't know if you remember a couple months ago, the airplane issue where it was like, oh yeah, safety stuff, that software is extra. Like, the bar has been set so low by proprietary software. Like, we have so much further there's like so much room up here for us to be like, hey, would you like to, I don't know, have the safety features included by default? We could do that. We would already be a distinctly different market niche than proprietary software, so that's good. Thinking of our users not as customers, but as users, and like trying to imagine something for them that doesn't exist yet. Like, it could be fantastic. It could be like, they could be like, I love software now. Like, my phone is a joy to use, and my laptop is amazing. Kids, like, I just, we could be looking at more stuff to provide like tools and things for kids. Like, I don't have kids, so I might sometimes sound like this when I talk to kids, but the world is pretty dark right now, I think, in a lot of ways. Like a lot of younger people are looking out and they're like, I guess we are just going to accept like a disgusting panopticon with ads all the time. Like, all right. Like, we could provide a little bit more hope there. And not just like, oh, use something, but I think like looking at ways to help people build things and customize their own experience. So it's not just like, oh, I made another thing for you, except this one is morally superior, but it doesn't, you can't change it either. Like, unless you learn to code, it's like we could provide more options for people to control their computing experience. And not just in ways that are like fun and exciting for, you know, rich coder bro dudes in San Francisco. Because yeah, there's like so many tone deaf things that come out of Silicon Valley. I'm like, are you kidding me? Again, the bar's been set low, so we could go high. And we could imagine a lot of things that don't exist. We could imagine building software for people that don't have lots of money. We could imagine building software for places where the digital revolution went right from no computer or anything to now I have a cheap mobile phone. So there are a lot of things that we could do if we, you know, decided we didn't want to replicate all of the proprietary software mistakes. So you're like, yeah, that sounds nice, right? So I have homework for you, right? So where do we start? First, yeah, no Nazis, no poop. Sorry. Again, we cannot build a utopia with Nazis. That just isn't, it's just not workable. Yeah, I can't believe we have to say this these days, yet, and yet we do. And it'll be like a tricky path. Like, there will be obstacles in the way. Like, if it was really easy to build a free software utopia, like, enough of us probably had a couple Saturdays, we would have already done it, right? We're doing it, but it's going to continue. There will continue to be obstacles. There will continue to be, like, you know, standard settings organizations trying to like wholesale eliminate free software. There will continue to be people discussing like copyleft licenses as viral. There will be continue to be people saying like, well, you can't make money on free software, and unless you want people to starve, you should like suck it up and work on Windows. Like, those people and those things will continue to be in our way, and we have to like power through on that. Luckily, we have all of each other to work with on that, so that's the good news. No pedestals. Like, the code non-code dichotomy is so weird to me. Again, we could improve on that or continue to improve on that, and not leaving our users like, hey, you installed something, good luck, bye. You know, so those non-coders could help us with the documentation. It's all like kind of connected and it works out together. Because the licenses aren't enough. And I see this as a person who cares pretty deeply about free software licenses. I organized an entire conference around copyleft. So go, you know, I'm a license nerd, that's fine. But it's not enough. The licenses alone will not be enough. We have to imagine what that user wants, how we build this utopia where, you know, all we can remember is like amazing software that felt empowering and great, and like lovely mailing lists where when people disagreed it was okay and no one called each other a terrible name. So I hope we can build that world. I hope we can get to that place where we're like, yay, we have a free software utopia. Because if we build something even better than proprietary software, I think people will come. So I'm going to take some questions if you all want. These are the picture credits. Again, thanks for coming so super early after the party. I know that 10 a.m. is not technically early for people, but it feels early after a party. So I appreciate that, and I would be happy to take your questions. Thanks. Yeah.
Hey, I just wanted to say that regarding Nazis, unfortunately, it is a problem in the free software world as well, especially on our free platform microblogging services, like all the Mastodon instances, and the admins are having a tough time moderating and dealing with this.
Yeah.
So to the point where people are putting in new solutions to try to deal with that. And then a second point is, would you, if a software, I'm not a Nazi apologist at all, just for the record, but if a free software license had a no Nazis clause, would you consider that DFSG free?
Yeah, so, okay. One, like a no Nazis license would make it not free software, which is difficult. I don't think the license is quite the right place to say no Nazis. And I recognize that moderation is not easy or trivial, but I think it has to be done. And it's possible, like, software can't fix quite everything, but we might be able to do a better job of building software that allows people to see, control what's in their feed a little bit better rather than just like yes, no, There's some work that we could, I think, do in that area to look at like how people could have a little different type of control or participate in moderation differently. So, but I'm not going to go deep on the technical thing. That might be another project that I work on soon with a friend. So, yeah, other questions or comments? All right, cool. We're going to build an awesome free software utopia. Yes? Yay! Okay, great. Go get some coffee. See you later.